morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about going back to in-person games.
Sounds good.
We were kind of iffy on the title. It's a Saul episode.
Oh, get ready for some deep thoughts, people.
Incredibly deep.
We're getting to the point where more and more people are vaccinated. And at least here in the Bay Area, most of my friends are getting to the point where they're fully vaccinated. They call it. It's either 10 or 14 days after your second dose of the Moderna or the Pfizer one and the J&J one. I think people are still kind of apprehensive.
Taking precautions,
and I want to jump the gun. And that's just the way it is. But I think what's funny is Cowie asked if we wanted to go to her house the next time we meet to play the One Ring. And nobody has responded to that specific question.
I think people are a little nervous. I'm sure there's people out there that aren't nervous about anything, but
right.
Here in the Bay Area where there's a lot of people,
6 million, I believe,
it's always interesting to figure out how comfortable you are with stuff. Recently, my workplace, we just reopened for people to go back into work. We did all the county stuff that we had to do, and almost everybody is vaccinated and double vaccinated, but it's still really weird to go to your workplace. Unlike Saul, who's had to go to his workplace the whole time. Now it's like you look at people going, I don't know where you've been, or I don't know who you've been with, and I'm a little nervous about, breathing your air. So
you're coming back out of this COVID isolation, mainly playing online. If you don't play online, I don't know how you're playing, but most people don't want to play with you. They're a pandemic. Around a table. So we've been doing a lot of role playing. All our role playing has been done online. And though that's been fun and it's exciting, and we'll continue to do that because obviously we have friends and family that do not live even close to us. I think we've discussed that we have a person in Florida. No, we don't have a person in Florida.
Texas.
We have Oregon, Washington, and one of my friends and a couple of my friends still live in my hometown, which is not prohibitively far away, 60 miles. We used to do that all the time, but there's no point in going 60 miles just to be with three of us, and then other people have to pipe in via the internet. Getting back together, what do we find? What are we going to find when we get back together? Or what are we looking forward to, I think is a better question. So for me, I broke it down into certain different things. The first one is the social aspects, and just being in close proximity to each other. I think we're social creatures. We talk about that ever since we've gone into this pandemic thing, that it's not normal for us to be isolated. I can't imagine people who live by themselves or just live like with their roommate or something.
The whole not being around other people is pretty bad.
That is how we are. We like to go to people's houses. We like sharing meals. We like doing all kinds of things together, playing games. And I think we do miss that. Being with somebody, being able to punch them in the arm when they have a good...
I don't know about the punching them in an arm, but I know that it will be good to have a role-playing game around a table so that you can have snacks and share snacks with people. And
well, that was the second thing, is that not only is there close proximity where you're able to see and notice their body language easier instead of on the camera, and their facial expressions sometimes, and their voice, they have a certain cadence and they sound a certain way. There's just sharing the food, right? We talked about snacks and how when we go to Cowie's place, she usually has a really nice spread of snacks and very good food, tasty, unbelievably so. So I think that's something else. I mean, I think almost any group, wherever you come from, sharing meals is important. It's an important part of community. It's an important part of society. And when you're gaming, you usually have snacks. Sometimes people have a lunch break and they share a meal and stuff. And I think that's just something that we miss altogether. Jolene, recently we all been just past our threshold for double vaccinated in our household. Another family that's friends of ours for a long time, that Jolene was just aching to let's go just have a meal with them outside somewhere. So we did. And it was really neat. And you could tell that they missed that, and that we missed it too. And it's important. It was just a meal. It was like, well, who cares? You could eat a meal and just look at each other on the monitor, but it's not quite the same. So that's more just like social aspects that we miss, and that we will obviously appreciate when we start gaming together again. What about playing though? Players. What are players gonna miss? As a player, I miss maps, right? Physical maps,
Actual figures and not tokens.
figures and not tokens. Even though we got pretty creative of making tokens, and we could make a token for almost anything, any picture we could find on the internet. People could draw their own token and stuff like that, and I think it's pretty neat. It was pretty cool, but full solid
3D.
mass 3D figure on a table is just it's different.
That you pick up and move on the map.
Right. On that map, on that battle mat, or if you have one. Terrain, if some people are really into terrain. Now, I'm not.
Saul's never been into terrain.
Because I don't like making terrain, and then, what is it?
Then you have to store it.
Storing the terrain. But some people really are, especially if they play like dungeons, or they have like, there's all kinds of terrain coming out on Kickstarter and
it's a big
and
thing.
stuff. It's huge. And I think it's going to stay huge and become a bigger thing because people love collecting, and it just, there's this one that I almost kickstarted, but it's just like it just wasn't, I wasn't sure how often I would use it, but it looks fantastic, right? It snaps together. You can make different size rooms. It has doors. It has scenery, like little treasure chests. To me, more like a dungeon delve type of game, but it could be used for an investigative game or something like that. But I thought it just looked pretty neat, really neat.
Basically adding to the theater of the mind, right?
Yes.
Adding tactileness to your images in your brain.
And if you're like me, who's not very good at theater of the mind, it does help me when I can see a figure. It does help me when I see a map. I've always, when we've gone to conventions, they would have, especially at KublaCon, somebody had the Dwarven Forge, just like, I forget how much that thing was worth, like $3,000 set, because it was like 10 sets, and they're all $300 a piece. And it was huge, right? So this person would map out a whole dungeon. And I think Larry DiTilio ran a dungeon through that, was like a guest dungeon master years ago, obviously. And it looked like a lot of fun. You would have to like sign up to play in that game, and the list was always long, and I never was on the...
Never made it
the cut. But it looked really fascinating. It looked really interesting. And now they have alternatives to Dungeon Forge, because Dungeon Forge was like cast in some sort of like heavy, it wasn't cement, but it was like plasterish type stuff, and it was really heavy and obviously very difficult to make. And now there's 3D laser printer cut stuff, and what do you call that? 3D printed stuff. You can 3D print your own.
And resin isn't as heavy or...
Right. And it's some of it's made out of plastic and stuff. Interesting stuff. I think it looks neat. I think a lot of players really like that kind of feel. Players like their character sheets. Their character sheets on paper. They like the tactile feel of being...
That's why it's called a tabletop role-playing game.
Yes,
or a
is.
pen and paper role-playing game.
Pen and paper. Or pencil and paper.
You want pencil so you can erase stuff. But
right.
you haven't even gotten to the best part yet. The dice.
Well, that's still... Oh, yeah, dice. So we mentioned it in many episodes that people like chucking dice. So just being able to get your favorite beautiful...
I don't like the term chucking dice because it sounds like they're going to throw it across the table at you.
Well, that's some people do. Some people like that. They get that handful of dice or whatever dice it is, or whatever amount, and they just roll it. Somebody who painted that miniature that you're just hurling those dice toward doesn't appreciate, but it's funny, right? When people get excited and they throw their dice, or even if they have a dice tray,
yeah,
they're so excited, just the dice go flying out. Probably not as funny, but as it should be, but I think it is. But I think that shows the enthusiasm that people have in playing games. I mean, I think that's why people love playing games with dice, is that they love that aspect, that physical aspect of throwing the dice, and at the same time, it's fate. How will fate treat you? People who go to casinos, they blow on the dice before they roll them. There's all this I don't know what you call it, but rituals dealing with dice, and
superstitions.
And some people have believe in them more than others. But I think all people who chuck dice in a role playing game have some sort of ritual. The way they shake the dice, the way if they use a dice roll, what is it? A can or a little cup, dice cup. How they roll the dice. I remember somebody complained about they didn't like the way you rolled the dice, Jolene. That you rolled them one at a time, right? Because just roll them all at the same time. And you're like, no, like your damage dice or something. Anyway, so there's obviously this aura of whatever it is attached to rolling dice in physical form. So the GM, I think has a pretty cool way of dealing with players who change it up on them, right? So when you're playing online, I was talking to Jolene. When you're playing online, usually you make an encounter map, and it takes time to make an encounter map online, right? Especially if you're adding trees and this and that, and just building the map by yourself. Or I guess you could quickly find one that'll fit and download it and put it onto your virtual tabletop, but that takes a little bit of time. Where if you are in a physical game, the GM, I was telling Jolene, is if the GM was thinking they're going to go onto a boat on this high seas, he has his drawn map of a boat, but then they did decide to go to the desert. Oh, but you have your trusty pins, your water-based pins. You have your
battle mat.
Battle mat. Quickly draw a map.
Then you can have the discussion around the table of which directions are and where you are and how big those rocks are and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And I think it's easier to change on the fly.
Then online, they have the same thing like on Roll20 where you can draw on the map.
Yes, but like a whiteboard.
That's really, really hard.
Well, I've developed a way of doing it. I'm pretty good at drawing stuff, but not as well as I would be with a pen in my hand. Just not possible. Though some people do. So I've seen artists on the computer. Yes. But those are like special tools and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're artists, so I can't compare myself to them.
No, definitely not.
Rolling dice in the open, I think Jolene. I think GMs like that. I think GMs like being able to see, just in case there's a little doubt in their mind that somebody's not cheating. It just really, it's there's all. I don't know. I know I trust my players all the time. I have no problem with that. But sometimes they're just like really lucky, right? I'm like, man, that's the fifth time in a row he's rolled this or that, right?
But you do the same thing online. You roll the dice where people can see you.
Yeah.
But the online dice, some people complain about that they.
Yes, that's true.
About the algorithms or whatever you were saying.
Oh my God. And that's always a big complaint. Well, just the other day I was listening to another podcast and they're using Fantasy Grounds. And they say that dice roller is, they can't say the word, is crap. It's not, but that's not the word they use. He goes, that is the worst dice roller. And they all agreed, the players and the GM. And I'm like, wow, because I don't use Fantasy Grounds. We use the Roll20 app. And even the Roll20 app, though, sometimes gives you some, like, I forget who it was. Was it Felipe or Mike? I think maybe. Oh, you weren't playing, but they like 3 people in a row rolled the dice roller, and it was the same number. And we're doing percentile dice. It was like 23, and like
That's
3
very
people,
odd.
3 people in a row rolled 23. So like we're like all looking at each other.
But as a general rule, when you're rolling in Roll20 at least, it's the same as if you're rolling at a regular table, because half the time the person does really good, half the time they don't do good, and basically you can tell, and it's usually the same day they do really good, or the next encounter that you have they do really bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of odd, it's just, but that happens in
normal dice rolling.
And people have gone to extreme measures as to punish their dice for not rolling.
Yes, there are dice jails.
Yes, there are dice jails. That's pretty cool. We talked about that before, but it's funny that people,
whether it's physical dice or computer dice, that have a logarithm to go with them, people are going to complain about the dice roll one way or the other.
I remember, I forget what game it was, but we were playing a game and someone was complaining about, I gotta check out, see what logarithm they use to figure out this dice roller. And it's true, it's very hard to write a very random dice generator. There's different methods. I have no idea what they are, but I've heard people talk about it, and of course it made my eyes glaze over when they're talking about probabilities and what you can do to change it and blah blah blah. But anyway, yeah. So physical dice, I think that even the GM appreciates rolling dice when they roll it, or even being able to see the dice as they come tumbling onto the mat or the table. I think there's people just love looking at dice and seeing the results, and then the results where much like why we like dice rollers online, where we all can see them, we see the roll. It's that triumph and the agony of defeat.
I just remember when we were playing Alien with Morgan, and I remember a comment that he made. He was rolling offline while we were rolling online.
Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't want us to see how many dice the alien actually had, which I thought was hilarious because all of us, we knew it was an alien, right? So we knew that it was going to have a lot of dice. You're not going to be able to kill the alien. You're just lucky if you get away, right?
Yeah, I forgot why exactly he said that was a.
He said it would cause us to be
Scared?
Disheartened, or like I don't know if that's the term.
It's alien. We were freaking disheartened already.
We were already panicked, and we knew we were gonna die. Most of us, anyway.
I forgot about that. You're right. He wasn't rolling in the open, and he was and that was what he said. He didn't want us to know how badass the aliens. Well, we already knew they were badass, right? The players, not necessarily the characters. The characters had no idea what these monsters were.
So in a real game, or not a real game, in a physical game where you're all at the table, you would know unless the GM had a screen,
the famous.
Then
GM
you would
screen.
Hear all those dice hitting the table, right? We could hear the dice hitting on his desk anyway, but
because he was using physical dice.
Yeah,
that's true. But we couldn't tell how many dice he was rolling.
No,
but we knew it was more than 2.
And we knew it was an alien, so we didn't have much of a chance anyway. So, but I can understand his idea that if we saw on Roll20 how many dice he actually was rolling, which was like probably 30 versus our 10.
Probably like we were rolling that many dice.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I think he probably was rolling maybe 12 or 13 dice or something like that. I don't know.
I think it was more, but it was an alien, so we knew it
was tough.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's another thing is GM screens, because you don't really have that on Roll20. The GM can roll where you can't see it.
The GM doesn't need one on Roll20.
Yeah.
Yes. Or any virtual table.
Yeah.
I think we really do like seeing those dice hit the table and the bouncing of the dice and all this other stuff, the clacking of the dice. It's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
I think they even mimic that on Roll20, but it takes a lot of resources.
Yeah, I never used the 3D thing because it just slows my computer down.
Yeah, and if somebody else has that on and they don't have a nice computer, which I'm sure your new
laptop,
your new laptop can handle it, right? Because my computer handled it, but I know that like we have one of our friends plays on a Chromebook. And he says it would take like 30 seconds for the dice to. He goes, I don't see the result. And then it might even crash the system. So yeah. So dice are pretty important, both obviously in any game, but the physical clacking of dice and stuff. I think I don't know, something about it.
Well, the same with cards, because there's some games that have cards, right?
Yes.
And we've done the cards on Roll20, which is always an experience. Bay, I think, figured it out, but you have to be able to deal it to the people, and either you make it so everybody can see it, or the person has to figure out how to see it if everybody can't see it, right?
Right.
Different things like that.
And there's some games that are more and more games are utilizing dice. I mean, cards in the role-playing aspects. And it would be real difficult to do that online unless if the package was available that you could buy. Probably a lot of them aren't, since they're probably small publisher games. And 2, trying to make your own would be really difficult. So a lot of times you would just convert a
regular playing deck,
right, into whatever you needed to roll.
We did that with the Lindworm, but it was actually a regular playing deck anyway that we were using for it.
They did that on purpose, yes, because they could have easily had their own special deck that would be easier, but they basically use a regular playing card deck
because they figure everybody has one.
Right.
At least everyone used to have one. I don't know if everybody has one now.
Well, we used to have like 5 different sets of playing cards. I don't know where they're at. They're still not.
Well, I just found one that was unopened. The problem was my son, he likes to play with the playing cards, but then he would lose the playing cards
and not pick them up and crunch them under his chair.
He's older now though, so it's not a big deal.
So he hasn't been playing with cards lately, mainly because we took them away from him.
Because the last deck he used, I went to do something with it, and I'm like, all the cards aren't here.
I know, that was yeah, that's right. Or are you trying to play solitaire or something?
I think so.
And then it didn't have the queen or this and the king of
where's
that.
where's the cards? I don't know. I lost them.
But we still have a couple unused decks in our closet. So physical game. So that's the GM. Both players and the GM like the clacking the dice and rolling of the dice and seeing the dice results. That shared experience of seeing the dice results.
And in person, it's even better because you're all at the same table. Right.
I think physical games for a while, like before the pandemic, they seemed more important than online games. And this comes from one of my friends, Shannon, who was playing online games before the pandemic, obviously. And he had a lot of experience because he would play with strangers and he would play with people outside his normal group because he was wanted to play games and run games, and maybe the people we know in the Bay Area, in the greater Bay Area, weren't interested in the game, or it was just a hassle to get everybody together. So he would run a lot of games and play a lot of games, and he noticed that before the pandemic, at least, a lot of people took online games
not as serious
as in-person games. And he would constantly, that was one of his biggest beefs, because he liked running really, what is it, like you like running Call of Cthulhu and Pendragon and these games, especially when you're running longer campaign style games, it's very important to stay in that feeling of the game, right? To be in the moment of
the continuity.
That and to be invested in the world that you're playing in. And when somebody mysteriously can't make it, kind of throws off that whole Jim Bob can't make it to the Call of Cthulhu game, even though when you guys left off, you guys were on a plane flying from New York to Egypt, and you're like, well, what happens when we get there? Well, he gets sick. You have to make up some weird thing why that character isn't around or whatever. So he was really bummed out when people would flake on him, and he really had a problem with that. But for an example, he started running the Great Pendragon campaign online, and that was about 3 years ago. And he was able to keep a lot of the players together, so they were all able to keep playing. And that game has lasted 3 years, and I think he's almost finishing playing that campaign. So it's not unheard of that games would last online, but for the most part, before the pandemic, a lot of people viewed them as, oh, that's like an extra game, or that's a game that's not
it wasn't as important.
Right.
They would just drop it, right, not show up.
It was easy to flake on those games.
Yeah.
But once the pandemic hit and it became like the one, if not the only way to play games, I think people got more serious. And what I also noticed is that for us as a group, we became more willing to let go of our inhibitions as far as the role-playing aspects. A lot of the times we talk in character. We weren't talking in character. We wouldn't try to use accents. But as the pandemic wore on and we were online more and playing more, people, because it seemed not as, I don't know what you call it. You weren't putting yourself out there because physically you weren't there. You were just a face on the screen, so you could talk in a weird accent, and if you sounded stupid or funny when you weren't intending to, it didn't really matter. So I think, at least in our group, quite a few of our players were willing to get in character. So I think when we come together in in-person games, I hope that kind of behavior stays, right? That we become more and more willing to role play in the in-person sessions.
I don't know. Some of those accents that Mike and Felipe made were not necessarily.
The important thing is that they were trying. I think that's what I'm getting at. Whether they were good at it or not.
I know what you're saying. I'm just saying.
I know. Doing a Scottish accent to use is what is it?
Horrible.
Blasphemy, because you know what those accents sound like because you watch a lot of British television, and we watch a lot of British television, and we like a lot of British shows, and that includes Scottish shows, Irish shows, and all these other shows, and that where people have accents, so we can even discern different. Well, you can, me not so much, and to the point where you don't even hear accents if it's not really thick.
Sip said that when we interviewed Paul Mitchner that he had a really thick accent, and I go, he had an accent.
That's exactly it, because you watch so much television, especially
Well,
British
it's
television.
not only that,
and you're exposed to different accents too. You just don't hear it, right? Or you just don't hear it and you understand it.
that has a lot to do with being around Joseph for a long time.
Yes, I could tell he had an accent, but I in no way thought that it was thick. In no way did I have a hard time understanding him. So it just goes to show you that Sip has a lot less exposure to accents than we do. But then again,
that's not true. He watches rugby. He hears all the accents.
Yeah, but that's not as much as, I mean, how much rugby do we watch in the United States? Or can we watch in the United States?
Well, now there's quite a bit, but
that it originates from England or other countries. Because they have rugby in the United States, but they're United States announcers and stuff. But it was funny that me and you both go, what are you talking about, Sip? We haven't talked to him yet. But he did mention it online. And we were just looking at each other going, what is he talking about? Because Paul Mitchner is a college professor, and it's kind of like that whole idea of the California accent, right? We're in California. Supposedly California has an accent, though we don't believe we do. Mainly because it's heavily influenced by Hollywood and stuff like that, supposedly. There's all kinds of reasons for it. But supposedly, we don't know. We're not the speech experts or whatever. But we don't think we have an accent. We think we speak the proper American accent, English or whatever you want to call it. We know how to say park and car. We don't put R in worsh and wash and stuff like that. So
it depends on where you are in California on that one.
We don't include Bakersfield in that statement. But so we hear accents even here in the United States from people from different parts of the country. I forget who it was.
So he's gone on this tirade because he thinks it's important for people to role play in the game.
Well, yeah, it's true. But it was funny that it's still funny that he thought that he couldn't understand him because of his accent.
He just said it was thick, that's all.
Yeah. And then he kind of didn't understand him, I think.
Okay. But it's not just accents. It's playing in character that you're talking about.
Yes.
Like Felipe, his honey badger, he talks like, well, he's a honey badger, so it's a gamma world, but she talks like a honey badger girl, a girl honey badger. Whatever that would sound like in your head, that's what Felipe tries to do. And some of our friends are better at it than others, like Jim with his Spanky character talking like a little kid was pretty funny.
That was funny. And he stayed in character a long time, which was pretty cool, I thought. Except the character's voice was a little annoying. So,
well, Felipe used that, remember he used that voice changer to try to talk deeper? But we couldn't understand him because we were online. So, I mean, people do lots of stuff. So Saul is right because, you can people try different things.
I think, I forgot what character that was.
I don't know, but
he sounded like one of those people who wanted a ransom from the FBI.
He did.
I can't even mimic it because it was so funny. But you know what I mean.
He did it because he used a voice changer.
Yeah, it was literally that.
Yeah.
I want $100,000 in unmarked bills.
Meet me at the park at 3:00.
No police. Oh my God. So I think most of us are excited to get back to in-person playing. I don't think all of us are going to quit playing online, mainly because Paul Mitchner said it when we interviewed him. He was saying that he has friends in different parts of the country. He plays games. I think
there's even someone in the United States that plays.
Yeah, in Canada, right? And so when you have that ability to play with anybody in the world, as long as you're able to get up and
manage the time differences.
Yeah, and it's easy, right? When we do interviews with people in England, as we have been lately, we get up early and do the interview in the morning, and they're up in the afternoon, and a game would be basically the same way.
And we did interviews with people in New Zealand.
That was a weird one because he was like a day ahead of us. That was weird. And it was like nighttime for him and morning for us or something like that. And
But you can do
Christopher
that.
too, right?
Yes,
Christopher was
when he
in
was in
Singapore,
Singapore.
which I didn't even know where it was. So I go, man, that's far away. That's on the other side of the world.
Yes, dear.
So I think we're all excited about going back and playing in person. I think there's certain things that we really miss.
Social aspects.
Social aspects.
Being in the same room with people.
Right. And that's one of the things we miss. We miss being able to see the dice. We miss the miniatures. We miss the physical stuff. And hopefully with the added, our group at least, we are more willing to do some role-playing with accents and staying in character longer and stuff. I think hopefully when we get back to the table, that'll.
Unfortunately for Saul, the people that are willing to do that don't live here, so he's going to have to do that online still.
Yes. Well, maybe I can push the people who we play in person with.
There you go.
Give it the more RP.
So there's some ideas for, what was it called?
Getting back in-person games or something? Back to in-person games? What did you say at the beginning?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Well, we'll call it something or other. And when we do find out what we call it, we'll tell you.
So there you go. Have fun. Stay safe. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.